First at 9 this Wednesday, the 21st of May 2025. Scarce salt. Parliament continues to heat up over the persisting salt crisis. Opposition accuses government of hiding salt stocks with ulterior motives of improving their private businesses. Chinese support. Chinese envoy reiterates commitment to supporting Sri Lanka in its efforts to alleviate poverty. Favoritism continues. Controversies arise as President proposes name for the key post of Auditor General. Strict laws. Mandatory to obtain an engineer's report before long-distance travel, says Minister of Transport, urging the removal of unnecessary modifications to buses from July.
Cinec Campus Open Day. මේ මාස 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's premium news provider, Auditor Derana. I'm Tharindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, Minister of Trade Wasantha Samarasinghe stated in Parliament today that imported salt stocks will begin arriving in the country from today. Accordingly, the current salt shortage is expected to be resolved within the next few days. However, Samagi Janabalawege MP Mujibur Rahman alleged that the government has enabled a group of businessmen to make extraordinary profits from the ongoing salt shortage. Meanwhile, tensions rose in Parliament as the opposition questioned the government's actions in securing additional votes to establish power in local government institutions. Deputy Minister, you spoke about local government institutions and used the word ruins. But who is collecting these so-called ruins? Who invited them to the President's office? Who is visiting their homes and asking for their votes in exchange for promises of positions? It was you. Not only independent groups, you also approached candidates from the SGB and UNP. When you do it, it is acceptable. But when we do it, it is not. It can't be that way.
Don't worry, just remember that the NPP will establish power in the Colombo Municipal Council. The opposition's plan failed. By combining the votes of the entire opposition, they tried to show that they had more votes than the ruling party. Now groups that believe the opposition would unite and individuals who previously remained apart from the NPP are approaching us. These independent groups are coming to our office for discussions. Even though you went to their homes trying to bring them over to your side, they are now coming to the President asking to join us. MP Dilit, will you also join? You are welcome to come over if you want. Even some members of MP Dilit Jayaveera's party are now in talks with us. Just wait and see what happens after we assume power.
This is a government that has collapsed in record time in the country's history. Even former President Gotabe's government lasted 2.5 years. It only began to crumble after about 1.5 years. This government is falling apart in just 6 months. Hold the provincial elections after December. Let's see if you can increase your vote share then.
The government should be addressing national security seriously. No one is talking about underworld activities or drug trafficking anymore. No one in the government is saying a word about this. Our question is, who is protecting the underworld? Where is the person who invited the public to come with a chair to learn about national security? Where is the one who promised the underworld will be eradicated within 2 full moons? Haven't those 2 full moons passed already?
Meanwhile, the salt shortage in the country was also highlighted at today's parliamentary session.
I believe that the STC imported salt in the past 6 months. Did they import it? Yes. I can be certain that they imported it by the minister's reaction. Now, what happened to the salt imported by the STC? That is our question now. They imported crystal salt. The STC imported crystal salt and handed it over to traders who supply salt to the Sri Lankan market. Usually, a metric ton of salt costs $80 in India. The government has imposed a duty of 40 rupees per kilogram of salt. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the cost of a kilogram of salt is about 24 rupees. And even after you add the additional expenses, a kilogram of salt can be sold for 100 rupees. But in the Sri Lankan market, a kilogram of salt is sold at a price range between 350 and 400 rupees. The government has done an incredible job in changing the system. The Consumer Affairs Authority only rates small shops in Peta. I would like to challenge the Consumer Affairs Authority to search in Hambantota, Puttalam and the Salt Corporation to see if there's actually no salt. There is. They are hiding it to improve their private businesses. When the previous presidents carried out similar actions, the incumbent president used to criticize them.
The statement made by MP Mujibur Rahman regarding the salt shortage is completely false. The Salt Producers Association met with us in December. They told us that they possess adequate manufacturing facilities and labourers and requested us to provide them with non-iodized salt so that it can be processed in the factories. We imported 12,000 metric tons of non-iodized salt after calling tenders to import 20,000 metric tons of non-iodized raw salt. They were expecting to extract salt in March. The harvest of salt expected to be extracted is remaining there. Salt has to be left undisturbed in the saltons for 45 days for it to mature. It can only be extracted after 45 days. But then it started to rain in the middle of the procedure. In Hambantota, it started raining in 35 days. Then we imported more salt again by February. The Ministry of Industries proposed to Cabinet to import another 30,000 metric tons of salt in March. The procurement process was completed and tenders were called for the import. Those consignments of salt will arrive in the country from today. What is the problem now? Now you are asking us to go to Puttalam. Come, let's go and check if there's salt. There is salt, but it is mixed with mud. The salt crust is remaining. They stated that the salt imported by the STC was handed over to the private sector. It's completely false. 8,000 metric tons of salt imported by the STC was handed over to the Hambantota Salton, the salt and supplied it to the market. There's a mafia that is stealing the salt, packaging and selling it at a higher price for 300 rupees. But we have ended that mafia. 25 containers of salt have arrived at the port. Additionally, the salt imported by Lanka Salt Limited will start shipping tonight. Then the salt shortage will be resolved.
The tsunami affected all the coastline of the country and all 4 of the saltons were flooded. But the country never ran out of salt. I would like to say that this salt shortage occurred because of the fraudulent actions of the government.
I would like to state a few truths based on data. Sri Lanka's annual salt requirement is approximately 180,000 metric tons. The maximum production of salt annually as of now is around 140,000 to 150,000 metric tons. There's already a pressing issue of whether Sri Lanka can fulfill its annual salt requirement. The government does not understand how to estimate the shortage of salt that will occur and find answers to it. The government is incompetent. It is clear that the government comprises a group of incapable individuals.
Opposition representatives claim that government has no moral right to establish power in local government institutions such as the Colombo Municipal Council, in which opposition parties collectively possess more councillors than the ruling National People's Power. However, Deputy Minister Dr. Susil Ranasinghe claims that certain local government councillors who contested the election under the Samagijana Balavegaya have offered their support to the government. With that, here's a look at the latest developments in the political arena.
Representatives of several opposition parties convened at former President Ranil Wickremesinghe's office on Flower Road to discuss establishing power in local government institutions, in which the opposition collectively possesses more councillors than the ruling party. The meeting saw the participation of former Presidents Ranil Wickremesinghe and Maithripala Sirisena.
We will establish power in local authorities where the government does not possess a majority. When they are summoned by the president, they must attend. However, that does not mean they will support the government. On the other hand, we know that the JVP is the wealthiest party in Sri Lanka. Therefore, it is possible that some councillors may switch allegiance. When it comes to the Colombo Colombo Municipal Council, 64% of people have rejected the NPP. Therefore, the NPP has no moral right to hold discussions regarding establishing power there. The Prime Minister and NPP MPs claimed that independent candidates were fraudsters. In such a context, how can they convene meetings with independent councillors to discuss establishing power in local authorities? If they are planning to consolidate power with the help of those so-called fraudsters, that means the government which secured power on the promise of apprehending thieves have instead gotten into bed with them.
Meanwhile, another meeting was held yesterday at the Sri Lanka Freedom Party headquarters regarding nominations for the additional list council seats won by the People's Alliance.
We will submit the lists of names of the councillors in due course. We will also submit nominations for mayoral and chairmanship elections in local councils. We are in discussions with all opposition parties.
Meanwhile, representatives of the governing and opposition parties commented on the establishment of power in local government authorities.
First, we as a party must decide whether we will act according to the Local Government Elections Act or according to the wishes of politicians. The JVP is in discussion with individuals. They don't care about the law. In local authorities where no single party holds a majority, we have informed our representatives to establish power in accordance with the wishes of the majority of councillors. The opposition is gathering councillors to establish power in local authorities. However, when they secure the support of one, they lose two others. Ranil Wickremesinghe attempted to unite them but gave up. Then both Ranil and Sajith tried to do it together. Now they are even losing the support of SJB members. Some even offered us their support. However, we had to turn them down because we already had agreements with others. A controversial situation has arisen over the appointment of the 42nd Auditor General of Sri Lanka, with President Anura Dissanayake proposing to the Constitutional Council an individual from outside the Auditor General's department to be appointed to the post. The opposition questioned in Parliament as to why the most senior officer in the Auditor General's department was not proposed to the top post. The opposition also accuses government of influencing independent state bodies when appointing senior positions.
The Auditor General.
Government is trying to appoint a new Auditor General. The individual being considered reportedly comes from the Petroleum Corporation and has only 5 years of auditing experience. He is said to be a friend of the President from their time at the University of Kelaniya. This reflects the current government employing the same system of favoritism as the previous administrations. But they did not stoop to such low levels as the current government. When this issue was brought up with the Speaker, he stated that a new Auditor General would be appointed yesterday. However, we were informed that an application was submitted just the day before. When the most senior officer in the Auditor General's department is available, we must question whether this is a politically motivated attempt to bypass internal merit and bring someone from outside.
Several other parties also commented on the proposed new appointment to the post of Auditor General.
The former Auditor General retired on April 8. Since then, the most senior officer, Senior Deputy Auditor General Dharmapala Gammampila, has been serving as Acting Auditor General. With over 30 years of service, the fact that his name was not even considered for the permanent position has sent shockwaves through the Auditor General's department. We express our strong displeasure over this decision. We have learned that a name has been proposed for the role, but the individual has never worked a single day in the public service. Therefore, he lacks essential knowledge of government regulations, administrative circulars, operational procedures, and the parliamentary tradition. We ask government whether irregularities can be properly addressed and public accountability upheld if someone with no public service background is appointed to a crucial position. The person submitted this application on May 19th. When the Committee on Constitutional Affairs met on May 20th, the name was not on the agenda, it was added later. This is the same type of nepotistic governance that the people rejected when voting for the NPP. Today, we can't even comprehend how the government is actively working to undermine the independence of the National Audit Office. We are deeply ashamed of President Anura Dissanayake.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී
Rammit Rauala, the son of former Minister Kehelia Rauala, who was arrested earlier today, was ordered to be remanded until the 3rd of June after being produced before the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court. Rammit Rauala was summoned before the Bribery Commission today to record a statement in accordance with an order issued yesterday by the Colombo Chief Magistrate when the corruption charges against former Minister Kehelia Rauala were taken up for hearing. During the hearing yesterday, Rammit Rauala was also captioned as a suspect in the ongoing investigation connected to his father. Meanwhile, former Minister Kehelia Rauala, who was arrested over 3 corruption-related complaints filed by the Bribery Commission, was also placed under remand custody until the 3rd of June. Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Zhenhong, says China, which eliminated extreme poverty by 2020, remains committed to supporting other developing nations such as Sri Lanka in their efforts to alleviate poverty. He made these remarks during the China-South Asia Forum on Poverty Reduction and Development Cooperation held recently in Colombo. China-South Asia Forum on Poverty Reduction and Development Cooperation was held recently in Colombo. The forum, which featured discussions on the theme Enhancing Regional Cooperation for South Asia's Development, gathered over 80 participants from China, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Pakistan, among other countries. Speaking at the event, Sri Lanka's Minister of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs, Gamagedara Disanayake, highlighted that Sri Lanka can gain valuable experience in reducing poverty through China's success in gaining economic value from cultural heritage. Meanwhile, Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Zhenhong, who highlighted that China eliminated extreme poverty and overall regional poverty at the end of 2020, added that while advancing poverty alleviation efforts at home, China extended continuous assistance to other developing nations. He added that China has been supporting capacity building in developing countries through both multilateral and bilateral channels, thereby making a significant contribution to global poverty alleviation. President Auditor General has directed relevant officials to take immediate action to address the urgent repairs required for canals and drainage systems in response to the surge in dengue and chikungunya cases in the Colombo district. These directives were issued during a meeting held yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat with officials from the Ministry of Urban Development, Construction and Housing, along with other relevant institutions. The President questioned officials on the inadequate maintenance of the canal and drainage infrastructure and directed the Urban Development Authority to develop a comprehensive plan that includes sustainable solutions for the improper disposal of waste and wastewater. He further instructed that these plans be submitted without delay. The discussion also highlighted the need to address improper waste disposal practices by strengthening the involvement of the Police Environmental Protection Division and community committees. The Ministry of Transport, Highways, Ports and Civil Aviation announces that debit and credit card payments will be accepted for the payment of toll fees for all expressways starting today. Issuing a statement, the ministry stated that motorists can now make card payments at exit gates along the Southern Expressway, the Colombo-Katunaike Expressway and the Mirigama-Kurunegala section of the Central Expressway. The service has been rolled out across 36 interchanges and 119 exit gates, marking a significant shift towards contactless and cashless transactions on Sri Lanka's high-speed road network. The ministry noted that the initiative is aligned with the government's commitment to implementing new technologies to improve public services, reduce travel time and enhance convenience for motorists. The Ministry of Transport is also planning to implement a special 6-month program from the 1st of July aimed at establishing a national road safety policy. In a press briefing today to inform the public of the program, Minister of Transport Bimal Ratnayake stated that as per the new road safety measures, it will be mandatory for buses to obtain an engineer's report before long-distance journeys.
Ministry of Transport, in collaboration with other relevant authorities, has planned to implement a special 6-month program aimed at establishing a national road safety policy. A media conference was convened today to inform the public of the proposed program.
We expect to improve the standards of the cafeterias used by long-distance buses. CTB buses should not stop at cafeterias without proper sanitation facilities. We have given until July 1st for cafeterias to be refurbished according to government-accepted standards. Additionally, we will be providing facilities to support the drivers of long-distance buses. We also expect to implement mobile random drug tests. We will be introducing equipment to help with detection. We will display a WhatsApp number for complaints regarding buses at provincial level and depot level. The public can record faults and send them to that number. An engineer's report has to be obtained before long-distance tours. This was specifically emphasized following the Garandialla accident. The new measures will be introduced to private buses operating under the National Transport Commission too.
The removal of unnecessary modifications used to decorate buses was also discussed during the briefing.
Modifications on buses will be removed from the 1st of July. We expect to work together with the Department of Motor Traffic in this regard. We have informed and advised the public against fastening idols on vehicles illegally. These figures will be removed from July 1st. We will enforce the law in this regard. Welcome back. You're once again joining First at 9 on Other Derana 24. Now in business news, Minister of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development Wasantha Samarasinghe reaffirms government's commitment to empowering local SMEs through targeted policies, guidance and resources. The Minister made these remarks while speaking at the National SME Forum 2025 organised by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Speaking further, Minister Samarasinghe has stressed the importance of building a dynamic and resilient environment for the small and medium-scale businesses to foster innovation and thrive in global markets.
Themed Scale Up, the National SME Forum 2025, organised by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, was held today, bringing together over 200 small and medium enterprises from across the country.
Under the guidance and leadership of President Anura Dissanayake, several strategic initiatives are being implemented by the Small and Medium Enterprise Sector Development Programme under the Department of Commerce. The Minister of Industries is also preparing to launch a nationwide campaign to establish an SME incubator network with a strong emphasis on turning research and development into commercial ventures. The goal of this initiative is to accelerate innovation and commercial success within the SME sector. Additionally, the country is actively engaged in discussions with both the IMF and the European Union regarding the development of small and medium-sized enterprises and the promotion of exports. Efforts are also underway to integrate local SMEs into global value chains, particularly targeting the Japanese market, while strengthening bilateral relationships with other strategic partners. As a government, we remain committed to supporting and empowering local SMEs through targeted policies, guidance and resources. We must build a dynamic and resilient environment for SMEs to thrive in global markets and foster innovation. This moment calls for decisive action, not just promises. Let us work together to bring about real transformation. Our government will continue to reinforce support for local SMEs across the country.
SME doesn't necessarily mean we are subsidizing. The SME, a vibrant SME, is an SME that is innovative, that is resilient, that is up for the challenge. We have to support the SMEs as they start as startup entrepreneurs in finding markets and finance, but thereafter SMEs must try to be resilient and to stand on their own feet. And that is what the Ceylon Chamber is here to support, to create the entrepreneurship skill and the entrepreneurship attitude among the SME sector. The government show their keenness, the priority the government gives to deal with the SME sector is evident.
State-held Employees Provident Fund or EPF has resumed its services effective noon today after a temporary suspension of services in offices across the country. The Department of Labour earlier said it had urgent and essential maintenance services on its computer network, compelling the authority to close offices across the country from May 21 to 23rd. However, instead of 3 days, the authority said it had completed the maintenance work in a few hours. The Commissioner General of Labour confirmed in a statement that the collection of EPF benefit applications at labour offices across the island have resumed and will be carried out as usual. In a stock update, the Colombo Stock Exchange rebounded from the last session's decline, with the all-share price index gaining 20 points to close at 16,356. The index experienced early gains before retreating sharply mid-session, followed by a recovery that saw it end the day in positive territory. Key positive contributors included Cargill's Dialogue, Colombo Fort Lanka and Building, Chevron Lubricants and CT Holdings. Market turnover improved to 2.4 billion rupees, aligning closely with the monthly average. The capital goods sector dominated trading activity, accounting for 27% of total turnover, while the banking and diversified financial sectors collectively contributed 30%. Notably, foreign investors recorded net inflow of 510 million rupees, indicating continued interest in select equities. Up next, we have Minal Wickremege from Capital Alliance in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
The weekly average weighted prime lending rate rose by 17 basis points to 8.58%. The average weighted call money rate edged up slightly to 7.97%. Reserve money remained broadly unchanged compared to the prior week. The total outstanding market liquidity recorded a surplus of 157.85 billion rupees as of 16th May. The government's revenue and grants increased to 1,067.4 billion LKR. Total expenditure and net lending also rose to 1,301 billion LKR. Despite this rise in expenditure, the overall budget deficit narrowed to 234.5 billion rupees compared to 281.3 billion rupees in the same period of the previous year. Net domestic financing of deficits decreased substantially to 153.5 billion rupees from 296.2 billion rupees, while net foreign financing turned positive at 81 billion rupees, a reversal from a net payment of 14.9 billion rupees in Q1 2024.
With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. Meanwhile, gold prices in Sri Lanka have seen a notable increase once again, according to the latest market data from the Colombo Gold Centre. As of this morning, the price of a 22-carat gold sovereign at SEA Street in Colombo 11 increased to 245,000 rupees, and the price of a 24-carat sovereign increased to 265,000 rupees. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.